I know, everybody went to see The Beekeeper or something, and I picked the one movie in January that flopped so hard. I don't even think this movie made it into the top 5. But saw it right before I got sick, so I'm gonna review it anyways. Hi everybody, Anthony here from Awesome Anthony Productions, and today I'm gonna give you my review of I.S.S. But before we get started, you know exactly what to do. At the end of the video, if I've earned it, please leave a like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you never miss any of my new reviews. Now let's get into it. I.S.S. stars Ariana DeBose as Dr. Kira Foster, a biologist that's starting her round on the International Space Station. She's joined by the other American members of the crew, Gordon, played by Chris Messina, and Christian, played by John Gallagher Jr., along with the Russian members of the crew, including Veronica, played by Masha Mashkova, Nikolai, played by Kosta Ronan, and Alexei, played by Palau Asbiak. It's business as usual on the ISS until, while on a spacewalk, Gordon notices a bunch of major explosions taking place on the surface of the planet, and both sides of the crew get a message from their respective government telling them that nuclear war has started between the US and Russia down on the surface, and that it's up to either side to take control of the ISS.
And we were told to take the I.S.S. by any means necessary.
Man, I saw the trailer for this basically 3 weeks before the movie came out, and it honestly left me pretty hyped.
That looks good, that looks really good.
Thinking this was going to be a thrilling, tense, and claustrophobic story that takes full advantage of its location and premise. What did we get instead? An underwritten script with cardboard cutout characters, and aside from the occasional kind of cool moment of tension or violence, nothing really interesting that it has to do or say.
This is boring. I'm bored now.
It honestly feels like the writers just plugged the prompt, "Write me a realistic live-action Among Us," into ChatGPT and just went with the first draft it came up with. This is admittedly a pretty cool concept, and in the right hands with the right effort behind it, it could have really been great. And in the beginning, I was kind of into it, but that's mainly because this is a tight hour-and-a-half movie and it wastes no time going into the conflict, with the war on Earth breaking out about 10 minutes into the movie.
That was fast.
I was also digging the next part of it, as we see both halves secretly get the message from their government and try to keep it to themselves and figure out what the hell they're supposed to do next, as the tensions start to rise between them. But once we get into the second act and onward, the movie just becomes the most generic thriller that you could think of.
Wait! I've seen this before!
With typical arguments, betrayals, occasional glimpses of violence, but no real action until the very end that honestly left the whole experience pretty boring. And this is not helped by the fact that I literally couldn't care less about these characters who have zero development aside from maybe one or two throwaway lines that get thrown out in the beginning. The only real backstories for characters that I can even remember is the fact that Kira has a fiance and that Christian has 2 daughters he wants to get home to.
How original.
No one else has any real characterization whatsoever, especially when it comes to the Russian characters. This movie also could have been set anywhere else, as outside of the opening where everybody's doing their jobs, Kira's getting introduced to the ISS, the spacewalk scene, plus the fact that everybody's in zero gravity throughout the entire movie. The ISS and the fact that this crew is in space does pretty much nothing for the story, when it could have been played up in a lot more interesting and fun ways to keep the audience's engagement throughout the entire movie, regardless of how low budget the movie is. This essentially is live action Among Us with an AI written script, as I mentioned earlier, with characters not trusting each other, secretly sabotaging different parts of the space station, pointing the finger at each other, and eventually attempting to end each other. But it really doesn't go that far in playing up the ways that could have made this a much more suspenseful cinematic experience. For example, instead of having both sides immediately not trust each other and start to turn on each other, I think it would have been much more effective if the entire crew kept a level head and realized, hey, this conflict on Earth has nothing to do with us, we're just going to do our jobs so we can go home. And then have the people start to show up dead or things start to be sabotaged without cluing the audience in. That could have racked up the tension so much better than what we got here. Then at that point, we could have figured out who Among Us is ending people and sabotaging the station. But there is no mystery here. Everything is paint by numbers, predictable, and pretty generic. And that's even the case with the rushed ending and the weak twist that comes with it. So yeah, I'm 0 for 2 with movies this year, folks. But it is the beginning of the year and most studios tend to just dump out movies that they have little faith in around that time. But anyway, that's my review of I.S.S. Thank you so much for watching. It was a bit of a shorter one, but this is a short movie that I really didn't have too much to say about. If you like this review, you know exactly what to do. I said it in the beginning. Please leave a like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you never miss any of my new content. While you're at it, you can also find the links to my socials in the description below. Leave a comment, let me know if you're one of the 10 people that saw this movie and what you thought. And if you want more of my content, you can click or tap on these cards here. They'll take you to my review of Night Swim or just over to my channel where you can check out my reviews, my shorts, and my old shit. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I will see you next time for my review of Argyle.